When the ships of the British Task Force finally entered San Carlos Bay on the 21st of May 1982, HMS Ardent, a Type 21 frigate, was moved into a diversionary position in the Falklands Sound to bombard Argentine positions inland. The Ardent would be subjected to repeat air attacks by Argentine aircraft. Her crew fought back with improvised anti-aircraft weapons. One of these men was John Leake, who had been the ship's NAAFI canteen manager just weeks before. He would go on to score a confirmed kill from the deck of the Ardent and go on to be awarded a Distinguished Service Medal. This is a story of his remarkable military career and the ship he served on. Before his time on the Ardent, John had served in the British Army with the 1st Battalion Devonshire and Dorset Regiment. He took part in one tour of Northern Ireland during his time with the regiment, but left the army at the age of 24. After this, John would work in security in the late 70s. Speaking in 1985, John recalled the moment that would set the course for his medal-winning actions of May 1982. In 1977, I saw an advertisement in a local paper for people to work for the NAAFI on warships. It was the best of both worlds. Like being a civilian in the services, you could have your independence, but then there was still some sense of discipline. John was the manager aboard the canteen of the Ardent as she set sail as part of the British Task Force on the 19th of April. He kept the shop stocked and running, and would be prepared to act as a medical coordinator if action stations were called. After leaving Ascension, the ship was put on to active service. John explains what happened next. We were given the option of signing on with the Navy or getting off the ship, and having NAAFI fly us back to England. I had no hesitation. I signed on in the Navy as a petty officer, but all the time I thought, we'll just get near the islands, rattle our sabres, and that'll be it. During his time in the army, John had been a small arms instructor and had used a GPMG, a general-purpose machine gun that had been in service with the British Armed Forces since the 1960s. It would see extensive use during the Falklands conflict, not only in the hands of troops that fought on the islands, but as a makeshift anti-air weapon. The gun was fixed onto railings of ships that made up the task force as they weathered constant air attack from Argentine Skyhawks and Pucaras in Bomb Alley and around the islands. After a swift refresher course on the machine gun by the Ardent's weapon director, Richard Goff, John was ready to aid in the defence of the ship when the air raid alert sounded. The first Argentine attack on the Ardent on the 21st of May 1982 came from a lone Pucara ground attack aircraft. It was quickly seen off by a Seacat missile. After this, John was put onto his GPMG. He describes his admiration for the weapon. For me, taking hold of that gun was the most natural thing in the world. I'd lugged that gun thousands of miles. I'd taken it apart in daylight, darkness, rain and snow. I had such an affinity with it. I fired it under so many conditions, but when I left the army, I never expected to use it again. An MOD after-action report on the loss of the Ardent from September 1982 describes the attacks on the frigate in detail. Shortly after the arrival in the new area at 1740 hours, a group of 3 Skyhawks were sighted by Ardent crossing Falkland Sound from the west. They circled the ship anti-clockwise, and at about 2 miles they turned into attack from the northeast. This attack was pressed home vigorously from the port quarter, and although 20mm and LMG blazed away, the aircraft attacked with cannon and bombs, 2 of the bombs exploding in the hangar area, one penetrating down to the after switchboard and the after auxiliary machine room without exploding. This attack caused major damage to the hangar area, tossed the Seacat mounting into the flight deck, and severely damaged the Lynx helicopter. The after switchboard was severely damaged, with the resultant loss of power including normal supplies to the 4.5 Mark 8 gun. There was flooding in the dining hall, ship control centre and flat, and a fire started in the starboard side of the hangar. There were also several casualties. During the carnage caused by the air raids, John recalled the moment he opened fire at an Argentine Skyhawk. Somebody shouted to us, "Aircraft bearing green 90! I looked over at the starboard side, and there were 2 aircraft coming in low. I opened fire on them, but they dropped their bombs on the ship. Then 2 more turned up. This time I hit one. I could see bits coming off its wing and underneath fuselage." The Skyhawk that John hit was forced to land at Port Stanley, as the burst of machine gun fire had burst its fuel tanks. The Ardent limped on after these repeated attacks, but was unable to defend herself effectively. The crew attempted to defend her with GPMG and small arms, but the smoke erupting from her aft obscured the lines of sight. With the fire in her stern growing out of control, the Ardent's commander Alan West gave the order to abandon ship. HMS Yarmouth came alongside her to take off the surviving crew. Ardent burned throughout the night of the 21st and finally sunk at around 6:30 a.m. For his actions on the Ardent, John Leake was awarded a Distinguished Service Medal, one of 12 awarded during the Falklands War. His citation in the London Gazette from the 8th of October 1982 reads, "Throughout the air attacks he remained cool and calm, even though the ship was being hit by bombs and cannon fire. He fired large quantities of accurate tracer at the attackers and inflicted damage on a Skyhawk. His courage, steadfastness, and total disregard for his own safety undoubtedly saved the ship from many further attacks and was an inspiration to all those in the vicinity." Upon returning home, John was made a local hero by the British press and received his medal in a ceremony at Buckingham Palace in 1983. He passed away in February 2000 from cancer. I will leave you with the quote from the Daily Mirror from the 19th of October 1982. Before leaving for the Falklands, John had been asked by his fiancée Carol not to be a hero. He replied, "I'm sorry, love. I won't do it again." Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I'll catch you again next time.